Never drink and drive.
Every 13
and
minutes,
always wear your seatbelt.
someone is killed in a traffic fatality on our nation's roads.
Collision is preventable. So we like to talk about collisions and not accidents.
With over 185 million drivers on the road, collisions are the #1 cause of death in the United States for people aged 4 to 35. There are almost 20 million car collisions each year. If you haven't been involved in a collision yet, unfortunately, chances are you will.
Law enforcement is going towards using the word collision instead of accident. A collision is something that we can prevent if we follow the safety tips that we give you. An accident is something you can't prevent. An accident is something, a boulder or something falling out of the sky on top of your vehicle. Nothing you can do about that. However, a collision, if you follow these safety tips, you can prevent a collision from happening.
Lack of awareness is a real problem while driving. In a recent study of just under 12,000 accident cases, 37% of those involved didn't do anything to avoid the crash. They weren't aware it was about to happen.
Crash Course Before the Collision will explain insurance coverage, the protection provided to you for each type of coverage, and how you can make the best decision regarding your own insurance policy. Before the Collision also covers the driver safety tips most likely to help you avoid a collision altogether. Crash Course at the Scene provides instruction on what you are required to do immediately following a collision, as well as first aid advice from emergency medical personnel. In your day-to-day life, you don't deal with towing companies, car repair shops, insurance adjusters, or attorneys. Following a collision, you probably will. Crash Course After the Collision will help you make the right decision, stay organized, and get back on the road. In this section, you will learn what to look for in your insurance policy, what items you always need to keep in your car, and safety tips that will dramatically reduce your chances of ever being in a crash.
Laws vary a great deal from state to state regarding insurance. Bottom line is that you must either have insurance, or if you're involved in a crash, you must pay the losses from your assets.
It is very important to know what rights you have and what your own insurance policy covers now before you've been in a collision.
An auto insurance policy is essentially a contract between the insurance company and the individual. The individual pays a premium and asks that insurance company to help bridge those risks that one has in the operating of the vehicle itself.
Most of us don't read our automobile policy until we've been involved in an automobile collision. Much of the difficulty we experience in understanding an insurance policy comes from insurance language we aren't familiar with.
Often to consumers, insurance seems complex. Your agent and your insurance company can help you sort out the policy provisions and what's appropriate for you.
Personal injury protection, uninsured motorist. Pull out your own insurance policy while you watch this section and follow along while we explain the most common coverage options.
When you're driving down the road and you see an emergency vehicle, either in your rear view mirror or coming at you, it's real important to pull off to the side of the road and to stop. If you don't stop, then they can't make the left turn, they can't make the right turn. They don't know which way or which direction you're going. So it's real important that you make sure you pull to the right and you also stop. If you are already in the right lane, then you need to give room to the other vehicles who are trying to get out of the way of the emergency vehicle too. That's real important, and someone's life may depend on it.
Liability, the basic coverage required by many states, provides you with protection against property or bodily injury damage you cause. Coverage is generally provided not only for you, but also for family members who live in your household. People who drive your car with your permission may also be covered. Typically, you are also protected when you use a vehicle you don't own. For example, if you borrow a friend's car. Your insurance policy has a dollar limit, known as policy limits. Most states have minimum requirements. However, depending on your assets, you may want to consider purchasing more protection. Policy limits work like this. If, for example, your limits are $25,000 and you cause $75,000 worth of damage, your carrier will pay the first $25,000 of damages, and you will be personally responsible for the additional $50,000. This is why it's critical to have insurance policy limits that you are comfortable with. Policy limits are typically provided in terms of per person or per occurrence. For example, your policy may provide for total limits of $25,000 per person with a total per occurrence limit of $50,000. This means in one collision, if you cause $25,000 in damage for each of 3 separate people, totaling $75,000 in damages, your policy only covers you for the first $50,000. You are personally responsible for the rest. These are general guidelines. Make sure to read your entire policy for any exclusions or situations that your policy does not cover. What happens when you are involved in an automobile collision with a driver who is at fault but does not have auto insurance? In those circumstances, you would look to your own uninsured motorist or UM coverage. Closely related to UM is another form of coverage called underinsured motorist or UIM. This type of coverage applies in situations where you are involved in a collision with an underinsured driver. You will typically collect the insurance coverage the at-fault driver has. Then you will make a claim against your own UIM coverage. For example, if the other driver's policy limits are $25,000 and your damages are $100,000, the UIM coverage on your own policy would pay the additional $75,000 depending on your UIM policy limits. UM and UIM typically apply only to bodily injury claims. While many states require insurance companies to offer UIM coverage, you may not be required to purchase it.
As troopers, we play the what-if game. We play it in a lot of different areas, but with driving, it's what if this happens? What if someone comes across the center line? Where am I going to go? What if this happens? What am I going to do? Always know what your reaction is going to be so you're not caught off guard, you're not surprised. It's wonderful, it's awesome, and it'll help you escape perhaps a fatality collision or a serious injury collision. You've got to anticipate the other driver's moves. The only way you do that is what-ifing yourself to death. And when you're driving, what if? Just what if this happens? What would I do? And respond to that what if to yourself so that you're not caught off guard and you respond properly.
Collision coverage pays for the damage to your vehicle when you're involved in a collision with another vehicle or object.
Collision coverage is not mandatory. You may choose to purchase this coverage depending on the value of your vehicle. The collision portion of your policy will typically include a deductible.
Deductibles are the portion of the insurance premium that you essentially self-insure. You can select deductibles between $50, $100, $250, or even up to $1,000. And that's the portion that you'd be responsible for in the event of a loss. The higher the deductible you select, the less your premium will be in those areas. Comprehensive coverage covers those damages to your vehicle that are non-collision related. Comprehensive coverages cover those things such as fire, wind, hail, vandalism, or theft.
Another item to look for in your policy is towing coverage. Immediately after the collision, your car may not be drivable. You may be injured. If you purchase towing coverage and your vehicle needs to be towed, your insurance company will pay, usually up to a limit of $50 to $75. If you have rental reimbursement coverage, your insurer will provide payment for a rental car while your vehicle is being repaired. You should expect to rent a comparable vehicle to your own. There is usually a daily limit and a maximum total rental expense. For example, $30 per day or $900 per incident.
If you're a vacationer and you're in a new place and you know that you don't know where you're going, use the right lane. You can exit the freeway a lot easier, you can get off for help, and you're not impeding the other traffic. So if you're in a new place, use that right lane. It'll really help traffic continue to flow smoothly.
A very important part of your insurance policy deals with medical coverage. After a collision, there may be an immediate need for medical payments. You need to understand what coverage you have before a collision occurs. In many states, your insurance company is required to offer personal injury protection, or PIP, and must obtain your written refusal if you decide not to purchase it. PIP benefits include payments to you, your family, or your passengers for medical bills, lost wages, and home nursing care. Your PIP coverage may also provide protection when you are riding in someone else's car, or even when you are injured as a pedestrian. Medical payments coverage, sometimes referred to as MedPay, is similar to PIP, but usually pays only for medical bills, not other expenses. Under the law in most states, in order for PIP or MedPay to apply, the medical treatment must be related to injuries caused by the collision, and the treatment must be reasonable, necessary, and provided by a licensed practitioner. You should not hesitate to utilize your PIP or MedPay coverage if you need treatment. However, if you receive compensation for your injuries from the person that caused the collision, you may need to reimburse your carrier for their PIP or MedPay expenses. If you do not have PIP or MedPay coverage, look for payment of your medical bills from your own health insurance. The same principle of reimbursement applies if you are able to recover compensation from the at-fault party. If you do not have health insurance, you may be able to locate a provider to treat you on a lien basis. This means the provider will not require payment for services until you are able to recover compensation for your injuries. Remember, you will owe the provider even if you never recover any compensation. While it is possible to ask the other party's carrier to pay for your treatment, it would be unusual and may only occur if it is absolutely clear that their insured is completely responsible for the collision. If the other party's carrier does agree to pay for your treatment, they may require that you provide a recorded statement describing the collision and your injuries. Providing a statement is the normal process for obtaining facts related to a collision. However, you should be very careful to be accurate in your statements. An umbrella policy is sometimes referred to as an excess or catastrophic policy. It is an additional layer of liability protection on top of your regular insurance. For example, if you have auto insurance liability limits of $100,000, you may be able to purchase an umbrella policy that will cover you for an additional $1 million of liability protection. In order to purchase an umbrella policy, most insurance companies require at least $100,000 in underlying limits. Some require even more. An umbrella policy would not only cover car collisions, but also other instances where you have become liable. Umbrella policies generally provide coverage after your primary insurance has been exhausted. Be sure to check your umbrella policy for exclusions.
Auto insurance premiums are based on a number of factors and vary a great deal from state to state. They include things like the types of vehicles you drive, your driving record, and certainly your age and whether you have a youthful driver in the household. Premiums are based on the type of vehicle you drive, where and how much you drive, your age, your sex, your marital status and driving record, along with the type and amount of coverage you buy. When you buy auto insurance, many discounts can actually apply. Some examples of discounts are those given for multiple auto coverages, multiple lines of coverage, new vehicle safety features, accident-free driving records, anti-theft device, defensive driving, new business discounts, and of course, good student and driver training discount programs.
You can sometimes obtain much higher protection on your automobile policy for a relatively small increase in premium cost.
My son thinks that I'm a trooper 24 hours a day, and if we see a disabled vehicle and I'm not on duty, he wants me to go to that disabled vehicle and help. Unfortunately, the times that we live in, that can be very dangerous. You know what you can do? You can call that in. You can call in 911 and say you saw a stranded motorist outside of their vehicle waiting for help, and they'll send a police officer or a trooper to help them. Allow us to do that, because it is dangerous for you to stop. Now we've got two disabled vehicles, or two vehicles on the highway. That's double potential to get hurt. Let us do it.
In many states, you will need to provide your proof of insurance and registration information, even if you believe the collision was not your fault. The scene of a collision may be hectic. By gathering information related to towing, car rental, car repair, and even medical treatment ahead of time, you make better decisions and reduce your stress at the scene of the collision. If you're involved in a collision, you won't want to spend time looking for a telephone. The relatively low cost of basic cell phones and service plans make it easy for you to be prepared and be able to call for help if you need it. In fact, you can purchase cell phones for emergency use only that are very inexpensive.
Avoid distractions while you're driving. Cell phones, putting on makeup, having your lunch while you're driving, talking to your children and looking back into the back seat. All of that can really cause problems. If you drop something on the floorboard of your vehicle, pull over and pick it up. Don't pick it up while you're driving, because now your eyes are off the road. Your eyes have got to be on the road at all times.
It's a great idea to carry visibility devices in the trunk of your car. However, you need to use caution.
Flares are great to have handy, but there are a couple of things you want to think about with flares. Know whether if there's fluid leaking from your vehicle, you don't want to utilize them, and be very aware of the traffic that's around you before you set your flares.
You may want to consider carrying warning triangles or other high-tech roadside visibility tools that are safer to use than flares.
It's always great to have a pen and paper in your vehicle, and before you get out of your vehicle at the scene of a crash, write down the license plate. That is the most important piece of information you will get that you can't always memorize. Write down the plate and then make contact with the driver, because if that driver takes off or someone decides to leave the scene, at least you have a license plate and a description of the vehicle. You can give that to us or the police officer that responds, and we can locate that vehicle for you. Pen and paper is very important. Write down that plate first and foremost, and then we can track that vehicle. A disposable camera is great to have in your vehicle. You can take a picture of the damage done to your vehicle as well as the other vehicle, and rotate your camera periodically, because it may not work when you need it. Having a first aid kit is good. You're probably going to have aid, respond to your scene, but always having a first aid kit in the event that you need it for any other time outside of a collision. It never hurts to have that in your vehicle. Also, any type of emergency medical information that an officer or medical people need to know about you in the event of a crash and you're unconscious. You want to know about heart conditions. You want to know about any special medications or allergic reactions you may have to medication. All of those things are great. So if there's somewhere where you can document that with your registration and your insurance card, all of that information together is great for someone, an emergency responder, to find.
Download a collision form from our online Collision Wizard tool at bbbvideo.com. Print and keep this form in your glove box. This will provide you with a helpful guide to ensure that you obtain all the necessary information while you are still at the scene.
Hi, I'm Peter Kissinger, President and CEO of the AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety. In this country, some 6 million traffic crashes occur every year. That's one crash every 5 seconds. And every 13 minutes, someone is killed in a traffic fatality on our nation's roads. That is an enormous healthcare crisis that we should all be very concerned about. So please, drive carefully so that you don't become one of those statistics.
By following the safety advice in this section, you will significantly reduce your risk of being involved in a collision.
Motor vehicle crashes are actually an unrecognized public health issue. It's a little known fact, but motor vehicle injuries are actually one of the top 10 causes of death for people in the United States. That's in the same league with diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. So just as we reduce our risk of getting heart disease by exercising and eating right, we can reduce our risk of being injured or killed in a motor vehicle crash. Motor vehicle crashes not only cause us immeasurable pain and suffering, they also cause a measurable impact on our wallets and on the U.S. economy. Both individuals and our society pay a high price for traffic crashes in a variety of ways, including for emergency medical services, for hospital care, for property damage, for insurance, and for lost workplace productivity. We all want to protect our parents and our grandparents, and eventually we'll all be senior drivers ourselves. But it's important to remember that we all age at different rates, and there are things that we can do to keep ourselves safe and mobile.
As we age, we know our eyesight deteriorates. In fact, a 60-year-old requires 10 times the amount of light to see the same thing that a 16-year-old would. We also know that we are less flexible, that our hearing decreases, and that our mental or cognitive skills are diminished. It is therefore extremely important that as we age, we routinely and honestly assess our driving performance. If you have parents or grandparents who still drive, it is important that you monitor their driving performance on a regular basis. And if you see a change that demands some attention, as uncomfortable as it is to be the one to say something, please take that initiative. If necessary, get your family physician involved in the process, because seniors are much more willing to take advice from a physician than they are their children.
If you have a teenage driver, one of the most important safety measures you can take is ensuring that your teenager has proper driver education and training.
Young, youthful drivers are substantially more at risk than the average driving population. In fact, 16 and 17-year-olds are 5 to 8 times more likely to be in a traffic crash than the average motorist. And the risk for those teenagers is particularly high during the first 1,000 hours when they're driving with other teenagers in the car, or when they're driving late at night.
We all remember the excitement of getting our first driver's license, but unfortunately, teenagers are some of the highest risk drivers on the road because of a combination of inexperience and high risk-taking behavior. Motor vehicle crashes are actually the #1 cause of death for teenagers, overriding any other type of threat to their health.
If you have a teenage son or daughter in this category, please spend as much time as you possibly can with them so that they can gain the maximum amount of experience from you.
Seatbelt use among teens is the lowest of any age group. Getting your teen to wear his or her seatbelt will dramatically improve their chances of surviving a crash. Teenage inexperience on the road can lead to driver error, which is only compounded when alcohol and speeding are thrown into the mix.
Alcohol is involved in 40% of all traffic fatalities in this country. And what most people don't appreciate is that alcohol reduces your performance long before you are legally intoxicated. So AAA recommends, please, whenever you drink, don't drive.
Alcohol and speeding seem to go hand in hand. In 2002, more than a quarter of the teenage drivers who were involved in a fatal speeding crash were also intoxicated.
Excessive speed, or driving faster than the posted speed limit or faster than conditions warrant, is a contributing factor in over 30% of all traffic crashes in this country. Increasing your speed lowers your margin of safety, decreases your reaction time, and increases the likelihood that you will be injured should a crash occur. So in all cases, obey the posted speed limit and reduce your speed even further if conditions warrant. It could just save your life.
General courtesy on the road. Try and anticipate what the other drivers want. If someone wants to pass you, don't deliberately try and stop them from passing you. Move over and let them pass. If you know someone wants to make a lane change, allow them to make the lane change. We don't have to be so territorial on the road. It's a lot of cars trying to share a small area. Be courteous. It'll really help all of our commutes.
Fatal crashes are more likely to occur when other teenagers are in the car. The risk increases with each additional teenage passenger. Nighttime driving is another high-risk activity for teenage drivers. The nighttime fatal crash rate for 16-year-olds is about twice as high as during the day.
The research has shown that some of the biggest risks to teenage drivers are having other teenagers as passengers and driving at night. So, at a minimum, follow your state's law for graduated driver's licensing and limit your teenagers' passengers as well as their nighttime driving.
Many states now enforce graduated driver licensing, where the beginner's driving privileges are gradually phased in. States that have embraced graduated driver licensing have reported 10 to 20% reductions in crash rates for teen drivers. With or without a state law, parents should establish rules based on graduated model.
Of course, this doesn't mean that we shouldn't ever let our teenagers drive. It just means that we need to give them plenty of supervised behind-the-wheel experience and let them gain experience through programs such as a graduated driver's licensing program, which is the law in most states.
For a copy of AAA's Graduated Driver Licensing Program, please visit bbbvideo.com. New drivers learn by example, so adults also need to practice safe driving. Teens with poor driving records often have parents with poor driving habits.
If your child's school does not provide driver training, I would strongly recommend that you enroll them in a driver training program such as those offered by the local AAA school. And even after your child gets their license, it's a very good idea to enroll them in supplemental driver training, because that will substantially increase the skills that they need to be good drivers.
Choose a vehicle that will protect your teenager in a collision, not one that promotes a performance image that could encourage your teenager to race or speed. The New Car Assessment Program, or NCAP, provides consumers with the relative safety potential of vehicles. NCAP supplies consumers with this information to aid them in their vehicle purchase decisions. For more information and to view crash results, visit these websites. When looking for a vehicle, a few things to consider about structural design are a front structure which absorbs crash energy in a controlled manner, minimal footwell deformation during a crash. In other words, crash forces are transmitted from the front to the rear of the vehicle without allowing significant energy to dissipate within the passenger compartment. Reinforced side doors and sills, which are resistant to compression. When shopping for a car, ask about the safety restraint systems. Find out if the car has airbags. If so, which kind, and whether they require user operation. Approximately 9,000 people are killed and 140,000 injured unnecessarily each year because they fail to wear a seatbelt. By buckling up, you can improve your chances of surviving a potentially fatal crash by 45 to 73%.
Our research has shown that we are confronted with a myriad of distracting events on a regular basis. Most of these are fairly simple things that have been with us since we learned to drive. Things like reaching down to pick up something you've dropped, or attending to a child in a rear seat, or adjusting the radio controls, or eating or drinking. And in most cases, they are reasonably harmless because when they occur, nothing happens. But just imagine if that distracting event occurred just when the car in front of you stopped, or worse yet, when a child ran in front of your car. In those instances, the results could be catastrophic. So please, in all cases, keep your eyes on the road and your mind on driving. It may just save your life.
Children and child seats. On average, each year, over 1,500 children under the age of 14 die in motor vehicle crashes. Another 200,000 are injured. That is an average of 4 deaths and 622 injuries each day. Of those killed, 50% were unrestrained.
Motor vehicle crashes are the #1 cause of death for children in the United States. But there are things we can do to protect our children. Just as we protect them from infectious diseases such as measles or smallpox by getting vaccinations, we can vaccinate them against car crashes by making sure they're in the appropriate child restraint system. This means starting off with a rear-facing infant seat, progressing to a child safety seat, then to a booster seat, and eventually, when they're the right size, to an adult seat belt.
According to the National Transportation Safety Board, the number of deaths and injuries could be reduced by half each year if every child passenger was safely buckled up.
One of the most important things you can do to help keep your children safe on the roads is to keep them properly restrained in the back seat of your vehicle. The research has shown that keeping children in the back seats significantly reduces the risk of being injured in a crash.
You don't want to turn around and talk to your children. Never take your eyes off of where you're driving. Drive where you're looking, or look where you're driving. If you're as prepared as this information will make you, you'll be much calmer when you get involved in a collision. You want to know verbatim what steps you need to take. You want to know that all this information is in my car, I'm in control, I can handle this, I'm going to call the police, but in the meantime I'm going to write down some very important information. You're going to handle this collision famously because you're already prepared. If you never have a collision, good for you. If you do, you're ready.
Make sure to stop your vehicle in a safe spot. Don't impede traffic. If necessary, set warning flares or reflective triangles for at least 50 feet from your car to alert oncoming traffic to the collision. But remember, be careful when doing so. And be especially careful exiting your vehicle.
If you have a collision and it happens in the lane, pull your vehicle to a safe spot. If it's drivable and no one is injured, make sure you get off the road, get to a safe spot, don't impede traffic because that causes secondary collisions. We don't want to see a secondary collision. We want to make sure we can investigate that collision off to the side. If no one's injured, we don't want to cause injuries.
Check yourself and passengers for injuries. Provide assistance to the other vehicle's passengers as soon as you are able. Find out if anyone is injured and assess the severity of any injuries. This will ensure that you are able to give all the necessary details when calling to report the collision.
You can ask someone, are you injured? Are you hurt? If you call our dispatchers, if you call any dispatcher, the first question is anybody injured? That is our first concern, is if someone is injured or not. If someone's injured, our dispatcher is going to say, don't move the vehicle, stay where you are. A trooper will be there in a minute, ambulance will be there. So that's the first order of business, is anybody injured? That's what we care about the most. We don't care about the cars, we care about the people.
When you think about what things a person shouldn't do at an accident scene, probably number one on the list would be don't move the patient. Most of the time when a person's in their car and seated, if you can keep them calm and keep them from moving, that'll minimize injury. Another thing that probably you wouldn't want to do is smoke. When people are involved in a high-stress situation and they smoke on a regular basis, it's pretty easy to want to light up to try and calm down and de-stress yourself. When you're dealing with gas, when you're dealing with fumes, there's always a possibility of a fire occurring, so it's important not to smoke.
Call law enforcement and have them come to your scene. Remember, we talked about writing down that license plate number. Write it down. Give it to the dispatcher. That way we've got it on record twice. You lose it, we have it. So you want to be able to give as much information to that dispatcher as possible. And again, the first question is going to be, is anybody injured? Are you blocking the road? That's very important information to us. Can you move your vehicle to the side? They may not ask you that, but they want to know if you're blocking the road or not. So by all means, call us. And we are here. We're there for you. We're there to help you. That's our job.
Someone's going to call 911 and that they need to relay information as far as what's happened. What is the mechanism? How many cars are involved? How many people are involved? You may not have a lot of information as far as the condition of the person, but you need to call early and need to get that assistance right away. They don't necessarily need a lot of information to start to get help on the way, and you're going to be pretty overwhelmed if it's a major accident anyway, so it's smart to get some help right away.
Well, in different states, the damage threshold is different, but if anyone is injured, you must make that phone call. You've got to make the phone call if someone is injured. The damage threshold in every state is different. You need to know that from your state. Know what your state requires as far as that goes, because you don't want to just leave the scene of the collision, assuming it's no big deal, and then end up getting in trouble for hit and run.
Always obtain identifying information about the other driver, any passengers, and the other vehicle. Make sure you write the information directly from the driver's license and insurance card. If you can, get both home and work phone numbers. Make sure you determine who was driving and who is the owner of the vehicle. Also write down whether the other driver or any passengers claim to have been injured. Write down any damage to the other vehicle that you believe pre-existed the collision. Note the time and weather conditions, including the condition of the road, for example, wet, icy, or dry. Finally, while still at the scene, draw a diagram or use the diagram from our online Collision Wizard tool to show the location of the crash, including streets, signs, and medians, as well as the starting and ending position of all vehicles.
At the scene, always exchange that information with the other person. Make sure you get their information, they get your information. Very important that you make sure it's a current insurance card. You don't want to write down old insurance information. I mean, it doesn't really help you because you don't know that they're insured by that company anymore. There's an expiration date on every insurance card. Very important. Also, you can exchange licenses and write the information directly from the license. That is very important. People do give false information. Change one number and it makes everything different. So you want to exchange. If you're exchanging license, that's a level of trust. I trust you, you have mine. You trust me, I have yours. Write down that information directly from the license. Name everything verbatim off the license. That will tell you that you have good information.
When you discuss the collision with anyone at the collision scene, detail the facts as you know them, but it's best to avoid giving your opinion as to fault. For example, instead of claiming that the other party ran a red light, you should stick to your own observations. I had a green light, so I assume his light must have been red. Look for witnesses. Make sure you obtain each witness's name, address, and phone number, especially if police do not arrive at the scene of the collision before the witness leaves. Ask them to put their observations in writing and provide these statements to the investigating officer. By asking them to do so right away, you are helping them preserve their recollection. Unfortunately, with the passage of time, people's memory and perception of events may change.
I love independent witnesses. Independent witnesses are us as police officers. They're great for us because they don't have any interest in this. So they see things the way they see them. And there's no reason for them not to tell us the truth. An independent witness is great. If you have someone that stops and saw the collision, get their name and phone number. They don't have to stay. Get it for the police officer. Get it for your insurance company. That will support your story.
In a hit-and-run collision, there is physical evidence that the other party's vehicle hit you. In a phantom vehicle claim, there is no physical evidence. For example, a vehicle forcing you off the road. For both hit-and-run and phantom vehicle claims, your insurance policy may contain very specific requirements that you must follow in order to make a claim. Make sure you read your policy to see what you need to do. You may be required to notify the police or file a collision report within 24 hours of the incident. Early notification is always a good policy to follow, whether it's required or not.
And then when conditions change, you must adjust your driving for the conditions. If we have rain, ice, snow, once it starts getting dark earlier because of daylight savings time, all of that, you have to adjust your driving. The weather is not going to adjust for you. You must adjust for the weather.
If the police arrive at the scene of the collision, they will usually prepare a police report, even if you don't ask for one. The officer will give you a case number. You will later use that case number to obtain the report. If the police do not respond to your collision, you should prepare and file a collision report. Go to the Collision Wizard to print out a state-specific collision report form. The collision report should contain the following information: date, time, location, road conditions, diagram of the collision, identifying information of both parties, license plate numbers, witnesses, injuries, description of property damage, and description of how that collision occurred.
The number one reason for speeding is I'm late. Okay, so we can plan around late. We can actually leave 10 minutes early. If it takes setting your clock ahead, leave early so that you do not have to be late. It feels so much better driving to an appointment when you know you're not late than when you're dodging in and out of traffic and running into people and having a crash. Guess how late you're going to be now? Now you have to wait for the whole tow truck, collision report, police officer, and ticket. So, you know what? The best thing to do is plan ahead, leave early. You'll get there and you'll feel much better.
Because most people depend upon transportation for work and daily activities, getting your car repaired will probably be one of your top priorities. Insurance companies are required to promptly pay property damage claims where fault for the collision has become reasonably clear. You can get more information regarding your insurance company's obligations by reading your policy or contacting your insurance agent. Immediately after a collision, you will typically contact two insurance companies. First, your own insurance company, often called the first-party carrier, and second, if you were not at fault for the collision, you will contact the insurance carrier for the person that hit you, often called the third-party carrier. You should contact your own insurance company as soon as possible after that collision. Many insurance companies offer the ability and convenience of online reporting of collision claims. You will be requested to provide collision-related information, such as a description of the incident, your position on fault, and whether you have any claims for property damage or medical expenses. Again, depending on the coverage you purchased, your own carrier may provide a rental car so you can get back on the road. If the collision was not your fault, you should also contact the other party's carrier, advise them of the collision facts, and ask that they confirm coverage for the collision. Unfortunately, just because somebody has an insurance card, it does not necessarily mean that his or her coverage is still valid or hasn't been canceled due to non-payment. Always call to check. If your car needs to be towed, check to see if your policy pays some or all of the towing bill. If it doesn't, check for another source, such as AAA, to pay these expenses. If your car is towed to a storage yard, check to see if your policy covers the charges while your car is stored. While your car is being repaired or while you're looking for a new vehicle, check to see if you have purchased car rental coverage as part of your policy. If you did not cause the collision, the other party is responsible for your rental car expenses, but you should contact their carrier before you rent a vehicle.
When you're making a lane change, remember you don't put on your signal light and make the lane change all in one swooping motion. Putting on your signal light is asking permission, not demanding entrance into that next lane. You put on your signal light, you wait for someone to observe you, and then you make the lane change. If you make the lane change and you cause a crash, you're at fault. Be very careful with those lane changes.
Once you have determined what coverage you have and who will pay for your repairs, you need to locate a shop to perform the work. If you're looking to your own insurance company to repair your car, you can ask them for a recommendation on a good repair shop. Some carriers have direct repair programs. If you elect to use such a shop, much of the repair process can be streamlined.
It's your right to choose who's going to do the repairs on your vehicle, and it's in your best interest to make sure you've done your research, that you know who's working on your vehicle has your best interest in mind.
You may want to consider obtaining several repair estimates from quality auto repair facilities in your area. Start by asking family and friends for references. The Better Business Bureau is an excellent source for information. Self-Defense for Car Expense is another BBB video specifically designed to teach consumers how to locate and evaluate auto repair facilities. It is available for checkout at many public libraries. Visit bbbvideo.com to find the library closest to you that carries this program. Always make certain to call or go online and get a BBB reliability report on any facility that you intend on doing business with. You can also check online for AAA-approved repair shops, an excellent source of reliable auto repair and auto body facilities. Unfortunately, if the collision is a serious one, your car may be damaged beyond repair. In such a case, the insurance company can claim that your car is totaled and pay you a fair market value of your vehicle at the time of the collision. Some of the most popular sources you can use to determine the fair market value for your vehicle: Kelley Blue Book, NADA Official Used Car Guide, Old Car Price Guide, Hemmings Motor News, and your local classified ads. You may also consider hiring an independent appraiser or contact your local Better Business Bureau for referrals to reputable car dealers in your area. You may be able to purchase the totaled vehicle from the insurance company at salvage value. If you want to retain your totaled vehicle, inform your insurance company immediately before they make arrangements to sell it to auctioneers of salvage parts. If you had personal items in your car that were damaged as a result of the collision, such as a stereo or cell phone, you may be entitled to compensation. Check your policy or call your insurance agent to verify coverage. If you do not have this coverage, be sure to check your homeowner's or renter's insurance policy. If covered, the insurance company will want to see proof of the item's value, such as a receipt. If you do not have a receipt, photographs of the item before and after the collision will be helpful. Although your insurance company or the other party's carrier will probably take photos of your vehicle before it is repaired, you should take and keep your own photographs. Make sure you photograph all damage that you believe happened in the collision, as well as the overall condition of the vehicle.
Avoid the no zone for trucks and buses, because if you're right on the bumper of a truck, they can't see you. If you're right at the nose of a truck, they can't see you. Get out of their way. And I know that people get very upset with trucks and buses because they're big and they block vision, but they're trying to avoid a collision. Their job is based on them not having collisions. They don't want to hit you, but sometimes they can't see you. The big rule is if you can see their mirrors, they can see you.
If you have any symptoms of injury or pain resulting from the collision, get checked out by a medical professional right away. Always be sure to follow your medical provider's instructions and follow up as directed. It's very important to keep detailed records, including dates and descriptions of your appointments, medications, and rehabilitation. Unfortunately, there are some individuals who exaggerate their injuries for financial gain. The Insurance Research Council has revealed that more than 1/3 of all injury claims appear to involve fraud or the exaggeration of injury. Fraud and exaggeration cost insurance companies and their policyholders between $13 and $18 billion each year. It is very important not to exaggerate your claims. In most states, insurance fraud is a felony and prosecutions are on the rise. Insurance companies have developed extensive programs to reduce fraud in injury claims. These law enforcement efforts, as well as fraud prevention programs, reduce the number of fraudulent claims and, as a result, reduce the insurance premium you pay. Your insurance policy may provide PIP or MedPay coverage. If you have this coverage, reasonable, necessary, and related medical bills will be paid. In order to request payment, you should contact your carrier and submit the appropriate applications. A daily diary can help you document the effect injuries have had on you and your daily activities. Include information about medical treatment, prescribed exercises, and medications. Also take photographs of your injuries until the injuries have resolved. Collision Wizard has a diary function that can help you keep track of this information.
Being an alert driver is very important because your reaction is going to be much slower if you're fatigued or if you're on medication. If you're on medication and it says don't operate heavy machinery, don't operate a vehicle. You need all of your reaction. You need to be very quick in order to operate a vehicle properly.
As you can imagine, there is no precise formula that provides an amount of monetary compensation for the pain, suffering, and inconvenience caused by your injuries. Compensation is often achieved through negotiation within a generally agreed range of level of compensation. The amount of money you receive will vary based on the severity of the injury and whether your condition is permanent.
Well, there's a great point here about being cautious when trying to pass. Sometimes when you speed up, other vehicles think you want to race. If a vehicle speeds up when you speed up, let it go. It's really not that important because that can turn into aggressive driving. It can turn into all kind of very bad things. Let it go. Change lanes behind the vehicle if that's your goal. But don't try and drag race with the vehicle.
While it relates to your injury, wage and income loss is a separate component of your insurance claim. You are entitled to compensation for time missed from work. However, you will need to verify that you were not able to work. It is helpful that your medical provider gives you a prescription for time off. Once you have established that you were not able to work, you will have to prove how much money you lost as a direct result of the collision. If you work as an employee, obtain a letter from your employer detailing how many days you were absent, how much money you lost, and whether you used up vacation or sick time. If you are self-employed, the insurance company may want to see your income tax records for the past 2 or more years. If you don't have copies of your previous tax returns, you can request them from the IRS website, irs.gov. If you prefer, the insurance company can send you a release form which requests the desired tax returns, but that process may take considerably longer.
Always drive with your headlights on, even in the daytime. It helps for people to see you. If you're in their blind spot, that headlight might catch something and reflect, and then you'll know that car is there. Always drive with your headlights on.
Each state has its own time limits for bringing a claim against a third party.
First of all, the statute of limitations are different in every state, so you immediately have to check and find out what is the statute of limitations in your state. The statute of limitations will start to run when there's an accident. So from the date of the accident until whatever the period is in that state, might be 1 year, might be 2 years in your state, you have to find out. You have to bring a lawsuit within that period or you lose your right altogether. So if you haven't settled your case and the time period runs, you lose your right to try that case to a jury or to a judge. So it's very important to check that out early on after the accident.
Most people successfully settle their claims without representation by an attorney. According to the Insurance Research Council, over 40% of all claimants do hire attorneys. The research also indicated that claimants, on average, fared better without an attorney and received their payments sooner. However, in some cases, an attorney is needed to assist you in presenting your claim.
No matter where you find your lawyer, whether it's from family, from the internet, from a bar association, or even from the Yellow Pages, make sure you get references. I suggest you go meet with the lawyer. They'll meet with you free of charge at the beginning. Find out if you feel comfortable with someone. You're telling them very personal information. Do they feel comfortable, and do you feel comfortable talking to them? Because that communication is going to be critical if you ever have to try your case. So get those references, and if you don't feel comfortable, if anything bothers you about the person, go somewhere else, because there are plenty of lawyers who will take your case.
One advantage to hiring an attorney is that it reduces the amount of work required from you.
It's very important that you stay organized during the process. Try to collect your facts early on. Don't let a lot of time go by, because your memory is clearest right after an accident has occurred. So what you might want to do is go to the BBB video website and find something called the Collision Wizard, which will help you pull together all the facts, give you a nice checklist on what information you need and how to organize it and collect it, and then you can take that to the lawyer and help him a great deal to get your case moving.
Most personal injury attorneys provide their services on a contingent fee basis.
An interesting aspect of personal injury law is that, generally speaking, a lawyer will take your case on a contingent fee arrangement, which means that you don't have to pay any attorney's fees unless there is a recovery in your case. Now, you may have to pay some expenses because the expenses may not be borne by the attorney who's representing you, but you won't have to pay any attorney's fees. And remember, in all cases, make sure you get your contingent fee arrangement in writing and make sure you know exactly how much you'll have to pay the attorney if there's a recovery. Generally speaking, it's a third if the case is not tried, but many times if the case goes to trial, a lawyer will get 40% of that recovery. But make sure you ask that question up front.
Some attorneys may work under different compensation arrangements, such as a straight hourly fee for the time spent in presenting your claim. So be sure you understand what your payment obligations are. Litigation encompasses both jury trials and trials by judge alone.
The process begins with the filing of a lawsuit and includes discovery, a process during which both parties share their evidence with the other party. At the end of the discovery process, the parties engage in a trial where all the evidence is presented to a judge or jury and a decision is made. The losing party may appeal the decision, which can significantly delay the final resolution of the case. The litigation and appeal process involves significant time and expense. On the bright side, however, the vast majority of litigation related to personal injury claims settles before trial.
The left lane is designated as a passing lane. Law enforcement, that we use that in order to face traffic and move to the next path traffic, do not consistently or continuously drive in that left lane. Use the right lane. The left lane is designated for passing.
Mediation is a low-cost alternative to trial, typically costing under $1,000, split between you and the insurance company. Mediation involves bringing the sides together before an independent or neutral mediator. The mediator can be a judge, an ex-judge, or an experienced attorney.
Well, mediation is a non-binding form of negotiation in which the parties who have conflict come together with the help of a third person, whom we call a mediator, to see if there's a way to resolve the conflict that they have and move on. And covers a variety of things, including automobile accidents, contracts, anything that happens in our society which brings people into conflict. Mediation is a frequent tool to resolve that conflict.
The mediator's neutrality may provide the first truly independent evaluation of the party's case and may significantly change a party's position about the value of their case.
Usually what happens is the parties, depending on whether they're represented or not, will come to a place like our office, which will have different rooms for them to sit and be comfortable in, and the mediator usually goes between the rooms, sometimes brings the people together to talk about issues in the case. Certainly it's important that the people who are involved know each other and meet each other. If there are people from out of town coming, particularly for the case, that they meet each other. But beyond that, generally the specifics of the negotiation occur back and forth between the various rooms, with the mediator taking the various positions back and forth between the parties.
Mediation is most often successful where both parties can recognize the risks inherent in their case. When one or both parties are firmly entrenched in their positions, mediation will probably not result in a settlement. In that event, arbitration is a better settlement option. When one or more parties are resigned to their position, arbitration provides a final decision without the time and expense associated with the trial.
One of the benefits of arbitration is that you avoid many of the process type problems that can arise in a public courtroom setting where we have rules of evidence that talk about hearsay and other written forms of materials that are very important in cases, but you don't need to call witnesses in necessarily. Those rules are relaxed so that you can have declarations or statements of people come in. You can have reports from doctors and other treatment providers, if they are part of the case, come in without calling them as witnesses. You have the option to do so, but most people really work with the arbitrator to narrow down the number of witnesses, to move it along, and to have a less costly type of proceeding for the person.
Typically, arbitrations are binding, meaning the arbitrator's decision is final and not appealable.
One of the most important things you do when you're in a vehicle is wear your seatbelt. Most states have gone to a mandatory law because they know that it saves lives. Wear your seatbelt. It really can save your life. It's mandatory not because we want to give you a ticket, but because we want to save your life.
With 185 million drivers on the road, odds are you or someone you know will be in a collision at some point. Collisions are more than a painful experience. As you can see, they result in tremendous inconvenience, time, and paperwork. The good news is that most collisions can be avoided with safe and courteous driving habits. However, you need to be familiar with the type of insurance coverage that are available and the type of protection they offer. Keep items in your car that will allow you to best handle and document a collision. Know what to do and what is required of you at the scene. Know your rights. Learn how to handle the claim and understand how to collect for your losses.
It's more and more important to be a safe driver. It's our job to keep the roads safe. It's your job to use the roads safely.
When you're driving down the road and you see an emergency vehicle, either in your rear view mirror or coming at you, it's real important to pull off to the side of the road and to stop. If you don't stop, then they can't make the left turn, they can't make the right turn. They don't know which way or which direction you're going. So it's real important that you make sure you pull to the right and you also stop. If you are already in the right lane, then you need to give room to the other vehicles who are trying to get out of the way of the emergency vehicle too. That's real important, and someone's life may depend on it.
As troopers, we play the what if game. We play it in a lot of different areas, but with driving, it's what if this happens? What if someone comes across the center line? Where am I going to go? What if this happens? What am I going to do? Always know what your reaction is going to be so you're not caught off guard, you're not surprised. It's wonderful, it's awesome, and it'll help you escape perhaps a fatality collision or a serious injury collision. You've got to anticipate the other driver's moves. The only way you do that is what ifing yourself to death. And when you're driving, what if? Just what if this happens? What would I do? And respond to that what if to yourself so that you're not caught off guard and you respond properly. If you're a vacationer and you're in a new place and you know that you don't know where you're going, use the right lane. You can exit the freeway a lot easier, you can get off for help, and you're not impeding the other traffic. So if you're in a new place, use that right lane. It'll really help traffic continue to flow smoothly. My son thinks that I'm a trooper 24 hours a day, and if we see a disabled vehicle and I'm not on duty, he wants me to go to that disabled vehicle and help. Unfortunately, the times that we live in, that can be very dangerous. You know what you can do? You can call that in. You can call in 911 and say you saw a stranded motorist outside of their vehicle waiting for help, and they'll send a police officer or a trooper to help them. Allow us to do that because it is dangerous for you to stop. Now we've got two disabled vehicles or two vehicles on the highway. That's double potential to get hurt. Let us do it. Avoid distractions while you're driving. Cell phones, putting on makeup, having your lunch while you're driving, talking to your children and looking back into the back seat. All of that can really cause problems. If you drop something on the floorboard of your vehicle, pull over and pick it up. Don't pick it up while you're driving because now your eyes are off the road. Your eyes have got to be on the road at all times. General courtesy on the road. Try and anticipate what the other drivers want. If someone wants to pass you, don't deliberately try and stop them from passing you. Move over and let them pass. If you know someone wants to make a lane change, allow them to make the lane change. We don't have to be so territorial on the road. It's a lot of cars trying to share a small area. Be courteous. It'll really help all of our commutes.
Our research has shown that we are confronted with a myriad of distracting events on a regular basis. Most of these are fairly simple things that have been with us since we learned to drive. Things like reaching down to pick up something you've dropped, or attending to a child in a rear seat, or adjusting the radio controls, or eating or drinking. And in most cases, they are reasonably harmless because when they occur, nothing happens. But just imagine if that distracting event occurred just when the car in front of you stopped. Or worse yet, when a child ran in front of your car. In those instances, the results could be catastrophic. So please, in all cases, keep your eyes on the road and your mind on driving. It may just save your life.
You don't want to turn around and talk to your children. Never take your eyes off of where you're driving. Drive where you're looking, or look where you're driving.
When you think about what things a person shouldn't do at an accident scene, probably number one on the list would be don't move the patient. Most of the time when a person's in their car and seated, if you can keep them calm and keep them from moving, that'll minimize injury. Another thing that probably you wouldn't want to do it.
Well, in different states, the damage threshold is different, but if anyone is injured, you must make that phone call. You've got to make the phone call if someone is injured. The damage threshold in every state is different. You need to know that from your state. Know what your state requires as far as that goes, because you don't want to just leave the scene of the collision, assuming it's no big deal, and then end up getting in trouble for hit and run. And then when conditions change, you must adjust your driving for the conditions. If we have rain, ice, snow, once it starts getting dark earlier because of daylight savings time, all of that, you have to adjust your driving. The weather is not going to adjust for you. You must adjust for the weather. The number one reason for speeding is I'm late. Okay, so we can plan around late. We can actually leave 10 minutes early. If it takes setting your clock ahead, leave early so that you do not have to be late. It feels so much better driving to an appointment when you know you're not late than when you're dodging in and out of traffic and running into people and having a crash. Guess how late you're going to be now? Now you have to wait for the whole tow truck, collision report, police officer, and ticket. So you know what? The best thing to do is plan ahead, leave early. You'll get there and you'll feel much better. When you're making a lane change, remember you don't put on your signal light and make the lane change all in one swooping motion. Putting on your signal light is asking permission, not demanding entrance into that next lane. You put on your signal light, you wait for someone to observe you, and then you make the lane change. If you make the lane change and you cause a crash, you're at fault. Be very careful with those lane changes. Avoid the no zone for trucks and buses, because if you're right on the bumper of a truck, they can't see you. If you're right at the nose of a truck, they can't see you. Get out of their way. And I know that people get very upset with trucks and buses because they're big and they block vision, but they're trying to avoid a collision. Their job is based on them not having collisions. They don't want to hit you, but sometimes they can't see you. The big rule is if you can see their mirrors, they can see you. Being an alert driver is very important because your reaction is going to be much slower if you're fatigued or if you're on medication. If you're on medication and it says don't operate heavy machinery, don't operate a vehicle. You need all of your reaction. You need to be very quick in order to operate a vehicle properly. Now, there's a great point here about being cautious when trying to pass. Sometimes when you speed up, other vehicles think you want to race. If a vehicle speeds up when you speed up, let it go. It's really not that important because that can turn into aggressive driving. It can turn into all kind of very bad things. Let it go. Change lanes behind the vehicle if that's your goal. But don't try and drag race with the vehicle. Always drive with your headlights on, even in the daytime. It helps to for people to see you. If you're in their blind spot, that headlight might catch something and reflect, and then you'll know that car is there. Always drive with your headlights on. The left lane is designated as a passing lane. Law enforcement, that we use that in order to pace traffic and move to the next pack of traffic. Do not consistently or continuously drive in that left lane. Use the right lane. The left lane is designated for passing. One of the most important things you do when you're in a vehicle is wear your seatbelt. Most states have gone to a mandatory law because they know that it saves lives. Wear your seatbelt. It really can save your life. It's mandatory not because we want to give you a ticket, but because we want to save your life.
Your AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety welcomes you to Breaking the Accident Chain of Events. We're going to learn how to avoid some of the most common accidents that occur on our streets and highways. We'll answer questions like, what are the links that make up the chain of events that lead to a traffic accident? How do the individual links work together? How can we break the chain of events? All this and more in Breaking the Accident Chain of Events.
Welcome to Driving Safety. I'm Patrice King Brown.
And I'm John Burnett. Traffic accidents are caused by chains. Not real chains, of course, but a chain of events, several things that happen together. Let's take a look at an accident and learn how a series of mistakes work together to form an accident chain of events.
This is Harry. Harry drives this road to work every day. Since he's so familiar with this route, Harry's concentration sometimes wanders, and today is one of those days. And that's Link 1.
Construction sites are always dangerous places, and crews work hard to keep them as well marked as possible. But sometime during the night, somebody hit one of the traffic cones identifying this trench and didn't stop to replace it. Link 2.
Paula, a driver approaching in the other direction, is upset. She's talking on her car phone and may be getting a little too involved in the conversation. Link 3. As she gets more and more involved, Paula's speed is slowly increasing and she doesn't even know it. Link 4.
The fifth link in this chain is the location of the construction site. If it weren't on a curve, it probably wouldn't be so dangerous.
Do you see the links coming together? They're forming a chain of events whose inevitable result is an accident.
First, daydreaming Harry doesn't recognize the cone lying by the side of the road as a warning. He wakes up to the need for a lane change too late, so he swerves awkwardly into the oncoming lane.
And Paula isn't concentrating enough on her driving either. She's on the phone. Paula sees the construction site and she sees Harry swing abruptly into her lane, but she's just going too fast to stop her car in time.
If these events had happened on a straight piece of road, there might not have been an accident, but they happened on a curve. The chain of events has led to its inevitable conclusion.
How can we break the accident chain of events?
Breaking the accident chain of events, Patrice, is actually easier than it might seem.
That's right. A chain of events is only as strong as its weakest link.
And in this case, if Harry had been a little more alert, he would have realized that the safety cone was probably in the area for a reason.
If he had simply started to slow down, he would have broken the chain at link 1.
If the driver who hit the safety cone last night had been courteous enough to stop and set it back up or tell the police that it was down, the chain would have been broken at link 2.
If Paula had not been distracted by her phone call, the chain would have been broken at link 3.
And if Paula had controlled her speed more effectively, the chain would have been broken at link 4.
Of all 5 links in this accident chain of events, only link 5, the construction at the curve of the road, was beyond the control of the drivers. The good news is that you only have to break one link in the chain of events to avoid the accident. Just one action by any driver would have stopped the accident.
The bad news is that you're hardly ever aware that an accident chain is forming. But there is a solution. If drivers pay attention and accept the responsibility of the job, most links will be broken before the chains that cause accidents can even begin to form.
Let's take a look at another accident chain of events. This is Diane. Like many of us, Diane is a little nervous about merging onto a freeway, and that's link 1. At a nearby bar, we find Pete. He's on his way home after a couple of drinks.
Now, he's not stumbling or passing out, but alcohol begins to impair a person's ability to drive long before that person is legally drunk, and that's link 2.
This is Jeff. Jeff is one of those drivers who sometimes forgets to look before he changes lanes. Link 3. And this is Chuck. Chuck is coming home from work. He's a little tired. Link 4.
It's around dusk when these 4 drivers come together to form a chain of events. It's getting a little hard to see, but some of our drivers haven't decided whether to turn on their lights yet. And those conditions make up link number 5.
Let's see how those 5 links form the chain that leads to an accident.
Diane is waiting on the ramp of the freeway to merge. Pete is sitting behind her, getting impatient because by his standards, she has missed several opportunities to go.
Jeff is traveling in the right lane of the freeway, bearing down on the entrance, and Chuck is cruising without lights into Jeff's blind spot. Jeff sees Diane on the entrance ramp, and he signals his intention to move over and make room for her, but he fails to check before changing lanes.
Chuck watches Jeff pull in front of him and gets angry that anyone would cut him off that way. So Chuck accelerates to pass Jeff on the right.
Diane has already seen Jeff's turn signal, and glad that he's making room for her to enter, she starts onto the freeway. Chuck swings into the right lane, nearly invisible with no lights. Diane catches a glimpse of him and panics, slamming on her brakes.
Pete, on his way home from happy hour and happy that Diane is finally moving, turns his head back while he rolls forward. Now, he too sees Chuck, but too late. He can't stop and hits Diane from behind.
Chuck and Jeff go on, both oblivious to the incident, with Chuck completely unaware that his reckless maneuver has been the most important link in a chain of events that caused an accident. But which links in this chain of events were not under the control of the drivers?
Again, only one, link 5. It was dusk and getting hard to see. But even at that, if all the car's lights had been on, the accident might have been averted.
Diane should learn to be more assertive in merging, and Jeff should have stayed in his lane when he saw Chuck coming up fast in the left lane.
Chuck's hurried, reckless driving put everyone at risk. And as for Pete, the alcohol in his veins slowed down his reflexes just enough to cause an accident.
The links that made up this chain of events are all too common. They happen every day. No one can keep the individual links from developing. There are just too many of them. The only way to keep the accident chain of events from forming is for individual drivers to break the links around them.
And the only way to do that is by driving carefully,
staying sober,
learning how and when to make decisive driving decisions,
and always checking blind spots before changing lanes.
And that's everybody's responsibility. Driving Safety is brought to you by your AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety, who hopes that you will try to incorporate the safety ideas you have seen here today into your everyday driving habits.
Thanks for joining us.
AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety, saving lives through research and education.
Kids will be kids. We heard it from our parents. We've said it as adults. And in this well-worn phrase is an understanding that children are different, physically and psychologically. As a result of their natural cognitive development, children will always seek to discover their world and their place in it. To this end, we see them in perpetual motion and constantly at play. And we understand, having been kids, that this is part of the process of growing up.
But there's a problem. Because children are still developing, they see things quite differently than adults. And yet, this child's world, one that's often a mix of fantasy and reality, must coexist with the larger adult world and the dangers it can present. And the greatest danger, and one that's ever present, is traffic.
We adults may forget just how complicated the world of traffic can be. It's a never-ending flow of information governed by signs, symbols, rules, and regulations. And the overall complexity has increased over the years, along with the increased flow of traffic.
As adults, we make sense of it all and minimize our risk thanks to years of accumulated knowledge and experience. But children, of course, don't have this advantage. And a simple traffic-related message that's clear to adults might not be so clear to children. For example, when kids are shown traffic signs, they sometimes misinterpret their meanings. Even older kids thought they could cross at this advanced school crossing sign because the sign shows kids crossing here instead of at the crosswalk up ahead. A reasonable deduction, but dangerous, and a clear indication that children see and understand traffic differently from adults.
Perhaps even more dangerous, younger kids, despite our warnings, may literally see vehicles as creatures with eyes and a mouth. These creatures may even seem to be looking at them, and because of this, they may find vehicles less threatening than they should. Obviously, all children need to learn how traffic can represent a danger to them and what they should and shouldn't do. And as adults, parents, and educators, we have an obligation to help protect children by instructing them in safe behavior and by modeling that behavior ourselves.
But we also need to remember that children will always behave differently and in many cases unpredictably, despite our educational efforts. So, as adults and drivers, we need to look anew at what we can do to reduce the danger to children. We need to look at the world of traffic through their eyes and learn more about their limitations and motivations if we're to make children safer in traffic.
Let's start with the obvious. Children see things differently from adults because they're smaller, and something like a row of parked cars can almost entirely block a child's view of traffic. In fact, parked cars can create one of the greatest dangers. A child may not see the car, and the driver may not see the child until it's too late. If there's the slightest chance of kids being around, you should have your foot off the accelerator and be ready to brake. And if traffic permits, you should edge away from parked cars to create more response time.
Suppose you see a child waiting to cross the street. If you can see her, then she can see you, right? Well, maybe not. We depend all the time on our full field of vision, but a child's field of vision is fully 1/3 narrower than an adult's. It's harder for them to see events in the outer edge of their visual field. Vehicles that we would spot in our peripheral vision simply may not be seen by a child. So don't assume you've been seen. Be ready to brake if necessary.
Even if you know children see you, there's another problem. Kids haven't fully developed the ability to judge speed and distance, and their reaction time is much slower than that of an adult. If they see a changing shape, such as a dog running toward them, they can reasonably judge the speed of the dog and how far away it is. But a car doesn't change shape, and small children can't see the difference between a standing and a moving car. Even older kids find this difficult, so it's harder for them to judge how much time they may have to cross a street. That's why kids may let a slower moving car go past, but jump out in front of a faster car. When you see kids by the side of the road, remember, they see and think differently than adults.
We all know how children cover their eyes, believing that then no one will see them. In a similar way, children in traffic make the assumption if they see the car, then the car will see them. The danger, of course, is that you may not see them, and throw in the fact that kids think cars can stop as quickly as people, and the danger is clear. So again, be prepared for the unexpected.
Locating the origin of a sound can sometimes be tricky for adults. For children, it's even harder. Their hearing is acute, but they will often look several times in the wrong direction while trying to find where a sound is coming from. As a driver, that means kids may not respond quickly to your horn. You must be prepared for a delayed response and be ready to brake quickly.
As we said earlier, our years of experience help develop a sense of caution. We learn to anticipate problems, such as when we drive defensively. Kids, however, are short on experience. And when it comes to complex traffic movements, they may make decisions without seeing the possible dangers. At this crosswalk, the car in the right lane is stopping. As adults, we would want to see that all traffic is stopping before we proceed. But the child may just assume the motorcycle in the left lane sees him and will stop. As drivers, you need to be especially alert at intersections. Kids may not understand the level of caution needed. Also, anytime you see a vehicle stopped in an adjoining lane, that's a signal for you to proceed with great care.
Children tend to concentrate on one thing at a time, like a friend calling to them or something they're playing with. Their attention is less flexible than that of an adult. Here, the ball demands all the attention, and any traffic is just not noticed. If you see kids consumed by an activity, they probably won't notice your vehicle.
When school lets out, it's time to be especially careful. Kids are focused on getting out and going home. They're in a hurry just like adults. But once moving, children have a hard time breaking off from what they've started, and they often won't stop at a curb and look for vehicles. Their eagerness to be in motion simply exceeds their caution in traffic. Also, extra care should always be observed when driving near elementary schools. Kindergarten and first grade students can be particularly vulnerable, especially when you consider that children don't develop a keen sense of danger until they are between 6 and 8 years of age.
Caution flags should also go up whenever you see kids on bikes. Bikes give kids a sense of power and fast movement, but kids tend to overestimate their ability. They're overconfident and will take chances that could create a dangerous situation. And if you see an older child near traffic, a younger child could be close behind. Younger children will often follow the bad example of an older brother or sister and put themselves in danger. Let's quickly look again at the ways you can help keep children in traffic safe.
Be especially cautious when driving past parked cars or anything that could block your view or a child's view. Be ready to brake if necessary, and give yourself time to respond.
Remember that children have a narrower field of vision. They may not see you even if you see them.
Also remember that kids have not fully developed their ability to judge speed and distance. Be ready for the unexpected.
Be aware that children's sense of hearing is still developing. They may not respond to your horn as quickly as you might expect.
Be especially cautious when you see kids in or near crosswalks. They may not understand the traffic patterns and potential for danger.
If you see kids focused on an activity, they probably don't see you. Be prepared to brake if necessary.
And finally, always be careful around schools and watch out for kids on bikes.
Children are not small adults. We need to understand they are limited by their age, physical development, and experience in the world. Above all, they just haven't developed the sense of danger that adults possess.
And when it comes to the world of traffic, it's difficult for them to understand the meanings and the need for the myriad of rules and regulations.
If we are parents, we can help teach them safe practices. When we are pedestrians, we can demonstrate responsible behavior that they can emulate. And as drivers, we can and should always be alert, recognizing situations that could spell danger. If we begin to see traffic through their eyes, then when it comes to children in traffic, we'll be ready to make a difference for safety.